today's movie is a bit of an obscure one. The Ice Pirates. This movie came out in 1984. It's a science fiction adventure comedy, and it's pretty freaking weird, actually. Now, in 1984, of course, we just had Return of the Jedi the year previous. Also in 1984, we're looking at movies like Gremlins, Ghostbusters. Yeah, you had a lot of big budget movies and a lot of sci-fi movies. This is a sci-fi movie. It is not big budget. It was meant to be, but their budget got cut, apparently, in the middle of production. You can kind of see that in the effects and the way some sequences are shot. It's called Ice Pirates, but it might as well be called Space Pirates, because it's about pirates in space. They happen to be stealing ice, though, at least in one scene of the movie, so that's where it gets the name, the Ice Pirates. Movie stars Robert Urich, TV star from the 80s. You may remember him from such roles as Dan Tana in Vegas, or as Spencer for Hire, which he went on to do after this. Yeah, he's actually pretty good in this movie. He plays Jason, the pirate captain. And, I mean, he's kind of a goofball. He's like a criminal, right? Because he's a pirate and they steal stuff. And they basically go beat up people and take their shit. But he's the pirate with a heart of gold sort of thing. And you get Mary Crosby, who was a TV star. She's on Dallas. Also notable for being the daughter of Bing Crosby. You know, the White Christmas guy. Then you get Michael D. Roberts, notable for being on Animal. Yeah, I don't know much from Michael D. Roberts. You actually get some other notable names in there, too. You get Ron Perlman, Hellboy, Pacific Rim. And he actually looks pretty young in this. Like, he looks less like Ron Perlman in this movie than he does in later stuff for whatever reason. I don't know. Angelica Houston is in it. She plays like a sword fighter. Angelica Houston from Addams Family. Also The Witches. Lots of other stuff. Royal Tenenbaums. Yeah, Angelica Houston, she has like this tiny little side role where she's like this sword fighting barbarian lady in space who's a pirate. Actually cuts a dude's head off in this movie, and it's kind of a neat effect, a little gag, I guess. Speaking of gags, I mean, this movie, yeah, it's a comedy, but I think somewhere along the lines, I think somebody came to the studio with this idea, and they're like, okay, we're going to make a sci-fi movie, we're going to cash in on the Star Wars fame, but it's going to be a little more lighthearted. It's going to be a pirate movie. So it's going to be a fun, swashbuckling adventure. But then somewhere along the lines, especially once the budget got cut, and it was kind of figured out that, yeah, we're not going to be able to do these grand battles in space and that sort of thing, and we don't have the effects budget. They already had a bunch of sets and things, but they didn't have the effects budget. So let's just make it cheesy comedy. And it is. It's definitely very cheesy. It's got some very 80s jokes in it. This is obviously geared more towards adults. The ship gets infected with space herpes, which is basically like some alien egg thing is found on board, and it like hatches and then runs around the ship and chases people or hurts people or kills people or whatever. The whole joke is it's called space herpes. It has nothing to do with like venereal diseases or anything like that. They just make a couple of jokes about it, and oh man, you have space herpes on your ship and you didn't even tell me? Yeah, and there's some like castration jokes in there. There's a jive talking pimp robot at one point. Speaking of robots, I thought one of the better parts of this film was the fact that, like, okay, they have their pirate crew, right? And there's 10, 15 guys. But most of their fighting is done by robots. So they have all these robots that go into battle with them and go on board these ships and stuff and fight for them. But the enemy also has battle robots. But theirs are like kind of like slapped together, and they're like salvaged battle robots, so they keep like falling apart and stuff. And but they're fighting robots, and one of them's like really afraid all the time, and another one just like super crazy kung fu, and then another one just keeps falling apart. One of them gets his head blown off, and they have to rebuild him and stuff. And I don't know. I thought the junky robot gag was pretty funny, and it kind of worked, and it kind of made sense in their little universe that they set up here. Ice pirates. So they steal ice because it's like water, and water is the most valuable substance in the universe, and blah blah blah. And it's like a pretty thin plot. At the beginning of the movie, they kidnap the princess, so the pirates get caught and they get sent to prison and almost castrated as well. And the princess decides to free them from their imprisonment and help her fulfill this quest to find this lost planet, something to do with her family, her father, I believe, and to find this lost planet where water is like abundant. But it's your basic quest. They have to go here and they have to talk to this guy and get a clue about where to go next and pick up some item, some MacGuffin, and the ring or whatever, her father's ring, and it's just standard fantasy action storyline, right? But it still, goes along at a pace and takes its story very seriously. Well, there's a couple of really ridiculous moments in here, which actually works to the movie's favor. There's a really like kind of over the top sex scene where our two male and female leads, they're getting it on in the like holodeck or whatever, and it's like all kinds of water everywhere and like storms and rainstorms, and they're making love, and it's so passionate, but it's like so cheesy the way that it's filmed. Oh, and then they got to go through a time warp and to reach this planet that they're looking for. And as they go through the time warp, they like age rapidly, and time moves forward really, really quickly while they're in it. But then they get boarded by the evil empire, so they have to fight off these attackers. And meanwhile, our male leads are like, they're all growing like super long beards, and we find out that the princess was pregnant, and so she gives birth to a son. And it's like they're in the middle of this battle, and they just had sex like 10 minutes ago. Captain Jason, he's kind of a jerk about it. He's like, no, that can't be mine. No. Anyway, and they're fighting this battle, and of course, since they're aging and they're growing all this white beards and stuff, and like at one point, Michael D. Roberts got this huge white afro, and it just looks so funny, and a big long mustache and everything. And the robots are all falling apart because, of course, they're aging too. And they're losing the battle because they're like super old guys, and they're just like all falling over, and they can't even stand up, and they can't go upstairs or anything like that. And so then in to save them comes the baby, and now he's fully grown, and he looks exactly like Robert Urich, like his dad. And he's like, "Mom, Dad, I'm here to save you," and they win the battle, and they're like, "Oh, thank God, son!" Oh, and they're ready to die, and like, yeah, it was a funny climax to the movie, and eventually they find the planet they're looking for, and happily ever after. But they go back in time, they go back to the moment just before they hit the time warp, and time started moving. So then the baby wasn't born, but I guess that implies that she's still pregnant, though. Anyway, it's a happy ending to the movie, and it was fine. Now, I liked a lot of the jokes in here. There was a couple that stood out, and they were just like, oh my God, really? But not much. I wasn't offended by any of it. It's stupid, but it kind of worked, I think. It's a good... I could see this being a pretty entertaining movie to see in the theater in 1984. I probably wasn't even able to go see it when it was in the theater, but I could see myself enjoying this. I mean, I enjoyed it now. Yeah, I think overall, Ice Pirates, I found it pretty entertaining. I found some of the gags were pretty funny. Some of it was really stupid, and the effects were kind of lame at some points. But overall, it worked for me. So I'm going to go ahead and give Ice Pirates a B. Yeah, I had fun seeing this. I did see this back in about maybe 1986, 85, 86. I'm sure on home video. For a lower budget movie, it's actually pretty fun to watch. It's more entertaining than you'd think, especially if you're from that era like I am. Anyhow, we will see you next time, and have a good one, everybody.